and welcome to the Board Game Barbecue. This is episode 195. Wow. I'm Dev, your host tonight, and I'm joined by two people that are clearly in the incorrect state. I can see you laughing. Jules, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I think the Brisbane heat's gotten to your head. You've fried yourself a bit.
Probably has. I wonder what Mike has to say about that. How are you, Mike?
I'm good, buddy. I believe a couple episodes you were talking about how cold it was in Brisbane. Like, you need to start making up your mind, mate. You keep flip-flopping here. What's going on?
I don't know. I come up here, people move to Melbourne. It's all confusing.
I'll be visiting your end of town in the near future.
Well, that's something. We'll see how we go. How many minis we can manage to paint during your visit. What have you guys been up to? What's been going on with gaming worlds?
Oh man, I'll touch on something that's been floating around our socials a little bit that people have been mentioning here and there. I recently decided to make a big purchase, and to do that, I offloaded some big games. It's probably not news to some people, but for those who don't know, I decided to sell Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
We'll allow that.
Townsfolk Tussle.
Okay.
And the Anachrony Infinity
Hell
box.
no.
Where did Def go? He's left. He's stormed off in a rage. I think his table's flipped.
So I decided to sell all three of these games for various reasons to buy my own copy of Kingdom Death Monster. It's a secondhand copy with the various upgrades and stuff that I would do anyway. So it's all sort of pre-done for me, including sleeving and all that jazz. It wasn't an easy decision to sell some of those, but I'm someone that has limited space, and I'm someone that likes to play the games I own. And if, things are not hitting the table, I'm pretty brutal about just culling them. Anachrony was definitely the toughest choice to sell because I do really love the game, but there was just a few factors that were making it harder and harder to table, which was really unfortunate. But yeah, my love of miniature painting and board games is like this combined thing in KDM. So that's going to be happening. I'll be picking that up in a month or so time, or maybe 2 months. Yeah.
Well, it's big news. And based on what I've seen from, Adrian and a couple of others from our community playing KDM, I think, you can get quite deep into that game. So looking forward to see what you come up with it. But selling Anachrony, wow, that was a big call.
It was a very big call. Yeah,
that surprised me a lot.
The thing for me, to explain my reasoning, my justification. I really love the game. Nothing has changed there, but I didn't want to play it solo anymore because I found it very easy to beat the bot. I found that I was good enough where I could, pivot and adjust to beat that quite comfortably each time. Didn't matter which expansions I was adding in because I'd played all the expansion content I could with the bot as well. And the base game for Anachrony is, in my opinion, okay. Like, it's not an amazing game. It's okay. It's the expansions that make it amazing and really change things up. That's where the full game experience is. However, teaching the expansions to some people is a lot to take in at once. I think it's worthwhile having one base game run of Anachrony, and then from then on, just mix and match what expansions you want. But also, I think while there are people I know that could handle expansions straight away for playing in Anachrony, I feel like it almost is a disservice because if they go, I'll purchase Anachrony base game, they're going to have a totally different experience. It is very, very different, and it's not representative of the base game at all. So I just didn't want to play base game anymore, and I don't know, just my life circumstances and who I interact with and all of that stuff. It just meant that getting a group together that know how to play the base game comfortably and then want to play expansions and try all the content was just getting that opportunity. I found was just getting more and more unlikely to happen. So
Very cool.
yeah, it was a $350 game sitting there, and I hadn't been touched in a while. So
Can't have that.
there
A
you
question
go.
I had for you, Jules.
That's what
a
happened.
question I have is that we were playing KDM with Gene. I've sort of stepped out of it for now, but you're still playing the KDM campaign with Gene. You getting KDM yourself, is that more to paint the minis? Do you want to play solo yourself? Are you happy to have a couple campaigns going at once? What are your plans for owning KDM?
I think it's all of the above. Definitely miniature painting's a massive part of it. I would love to play it solo, and I'd love to have another campaign going. It's one of those things that while we've released a Patreon episode on Adrian and I talking about our campaigns of Kingdom Death, there is a lot to the game, but I don't think it's, too much to actually have multiple campaigns going, especially with separate copies. I really love the game, but yeah, miniatures are, I won't lie, a massive part of it. That's my second hobby, really, and I love it to bits.
Very cool.
At least with Anachrony, I know you got quite a lot of value out of it.
Oh, yeah.
How many times you've played it and how much we've talked about it as well. So I guess, it's still a solid experience. And here's the question, though.
Mm-hmm.
Based on your experience from buying to playing to selling it, do you think you prefer that way of releasing games? We've spoken about this before. You've heard me talk about this before. Do you prefer this way of having a base game and then 5 expansions and 6 modules, or would you prefer, is my question, if the game was whole one thing, even if it meant a bigger, steeper learning curve or a bigger threshold to jump to play it?
Yeah, I suppose at this point in time, I would prefer a game to just be all in one, encompassing. But if you'd asked me that a few years ago, I probably would have said I'd prefer to buy expansions here and there and add them as I go.
Fair.
But yeah, for me, like ever since I played on Mars, like I just feel like I can conquer the world,
On Mars, we'll do that.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Before I start talking about specific games, something that was a really amazing experience that I got to share with some of the other guys recently was Jules, Dan, and myself got to participate in Oz ComicCon this year.
I will stop you right there. We want to see photos and videos from your cosplays right now.
Well, mine was a bit skimpy, and Jules was even worse. So I don't know if they're really family friendly enough.
I dressed up as the evil one from the board game barbecue.
Oh. Yeah. I'll give you that one.
It was a really, really awesome experience because I've tried to do something similar before, but it was sort of last minute and a very small convention and didn't work out too well. But I think all of us didn't really know what to expect going into it. So they do have a tabletop area at Oz ComicCon. It's how many tables are Jules? Was it 6 or 9 tables, something like that?
It was more. It was probably about 15.
You reckon? Okay.
Yeah.
So quite a few tables. And we basically had 3 tables to ourselves, and we all took some of our personal games that we thought might be interesting to sort of show people who might be interested in board games and help introduce others to them. And we heard we were having a chat, and they're like, Jules, you can walk off for an hour and look around the convention, and we'll man the area, and we'll sort of take turns. And we didn't expect it to be crazily busy. But I'll tell you, once they let people in the doors, I think within 20 minutes, I started teaching somebody unmatched. And 10 minutes after that, I looked up and both our boys were both sitting there playing games with people. And I kid you not, we did not stop talking and playing board games from 9 to 5 on the Saturday and the Sunday. And it was crazy. So many people who have played some games, or families that have never played games, or groups of people all coming together, and it was a really awesome experience. We sort of played the same game over and over a bit, which was fine. We all took some games that we liked and we knew we'd enjoy. I think some of my most played games on that weekend was teaching Unmatched and teaching if I found a group of people that wanted to have a bit of a laugh, I was pulling out a lot of like Cockroach Poker and Skull a lot as well. Skull's a really good game. Jules, I think you're doing a bit of bites if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, there was heaps of bites going on.
It was a pretty crazy weekend, and just seeing the enthusiasm and the interest from people really took me by surprise. We did not have any time to barely have any lunch, let alone get up and start walking around the convention. I was at a nerd convention for 2 full days with so many things to look at and buy, and I did not leave the tabletop area the whole time. I think we were all the same, weren't we, Jules?
Yeah. No, I never got to walk around and look at anything to buy. I literally was just stuck there, but it was awesome.
Yeah, just we met lots of really cool people. We introduced a few new people to the community and just tried to spread the love of board gaming. And it was really cool just to speak sort of passionately to people and explain to them what this hobby's done for me and what it can do for them. And like there was even a moment where there was a group of girls. There was like 3 or 4 of them, and they were getting ready to play Uno, and a couple other fellas were asking me to play a board game. And I'm like, all right, well, do you guys want to lie to each other? They're like, yeah, we want to lie to each other. So I pulled out, what was one I just mentioned a second ago? Oh my goodness, not Skull, the other one, the Cockroach Poker. And I've got those 2 groups to sit together. I'm like, hey, do you guys just want to all play together? And I watched this group of people play 2 rounds of Cockroach Poker, and they're having a good laugh. And that's what I want to see in board gaming. I want to see people who won't normally play together get together and share this experience, and seeing that happen over and over and over again. And I think it surprised other people, because when you think of board gaming, you think of getting together with some of your friends and playing a game. But one of the things I love about board gaming is going to a game day or a game night and saying, hey, you standing there by yourself, would you like to come and join us for a game? And I think it took some people by surprise when I said, hey, do you guys want to play a board game? How many of you are there? 3? We can fit 3 more. Hey, you group, do you want to come over here? And everyone was sort of surprised at that, but they took it on really well. And then you watch all these people having an amazing time together. And that's what did it for me. What was the experience like for you, Jules?
Yeah, I was much the same. It was really fun sort of, grabbing a couple that were looking at games and going, hey, sit down with these guys and let's play. And everyone having a great time. I remember one group of guys, they were looking at the table of games, and I could tell they were a group of close mates. And I said, hey, are you interested in these? I'm happy to teach you a game. Oh, no, our friend's going to pick a game. And I think they pulled a copy of Codenames off one of the tables. And I was like, yep, fair enough. I saw they played that. They went through it, and they were sort of packing up. I said, are you looking to play another game? They're like, oh, yeah, what have you got? So I pulled out your copy of Crossing, Mike, and taught it to those guys. They played like 5 or 6 rounds of it. They were absolutely laughing their heads off and just having a great time. So it was really fun. Because obviously a lot of the people at that convention, board gaming is not a major part of it. It's just a nice thing to have at Comic-Con. It's more focused on pop culture, comics and collectibles and that sort of stuff. But it was really interesting to interact with a crowd that had dabbled in board gaming, but it wasn't really their main thing, and introduce them to some of the games we'd brought along, and having their minds sort of blown about, wow, okay, I've never seen anything like this before. And there was even a group of girls that towards the end of the Sunday where they were looking for something to do for the last hour or so of the con, and they're like, oh, do you have something quick? I'm like, we've got lots of quick games. And I taught them Crossing, I taught them Bites, and another game as well. I can't remember which one it was, but they were just like, how did we fit all this gaming in the last hour? They were really shocked. I think they played just one with Dan as well. That's what happened. Okay. And they were just really shocked about how much gaming they fitted in the last hour. And it was really cool to see, that joy that they had from experiencing all these different games. I think I even taught them Illusion in that time as well. Yeah. So
I think something we did, we changed a lot of expectations that day. I think. A lot of expectations and perceptions about what gaming is today. And
Yes.
it doesn't have to be a Euro game that takes 3 hours, or one of Def's 48-hour coin games or anything like that. It can be quick, it can be funny, it can be cooperative. Like, that's something
Yes.
else that surprised a lot of people. I taught some people some cooperative games, and they were
Mhm.
surprised to be playing a board game and not competing against each other. I think that was something else that surprised people as well. So that was my favorite thing, just enhancing people's knowledge and perceptions of what games are these days. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good fun.
It's interesting to hear you both talking about it, because being in the comic book sort of hobby as well since I was very young, and I know most of us have some correlation with that pop culture market. You kind of create this assumption in your head that most people that are into comic books would be into board games, and yet this couldn't be further from the truth. This is a completely different demographic, and usually it's also a lot younger than people that get into board games. I think that's my perception of it. And so I think what you said, Mike, is on spot, that showing people that board games can be quick and fun and engaging, and most importantly can be a way of spending time with random people that you don't know, and building a rapport very quickly through the game. If you think about it, I don't think there's many hobbies that can do that.
No.
So
at least not as quickly. Like, people with mutual interests can sort of get together and talk about them and enjoy it. But I think board games are special that you're sharing an experience. You're not just having a conversation. You're sharing an experience together. You're playing a game of Skull where you're lying to each other, and it makes you laugh. It makes you suspicious. It brings out a lot more emotions at once than a lot of other experiences. Like, people who love cars might together and talk about their cars and get that joy from cars, but they're not suspicious of each other. They're not necessarily making each other laugh, or having those moments that make memories. I think, in my personal opinion, I think board games just sends you straight into a fantasy world. It sends you straight into using your brain in a different way, and just gets people together. It made me really happy to see. It was really, really awesome just to see all the people giving it a go and having a fair crack at it. So it was pretty amazing, and I can't wait to do one again. I think, more tired by the end of it than I would normally be by one of our game days. Because there was lots of talking and lots of, it might seem pretty simple, like teaching a game of illusion or teaching a game of Unmatched is a lot quicker and easier than teaching something like Anachrony. But when you're doing it over and over and over again, one after another, it becomes pretty exhausting. But I was running on adrenaline that day. It was just a lot of fun. Just good to see the atmosphere. Everyone's dressed up. You're not only sitting there playing a game with someone, you're asking them what questions they are, but their costume they're wearing today, and all sorts of other things. And looking around and seeing people old and young playing together and from all different backgrounds. And it was a awesome weekend. And thanks again to Oz ComicCon for having us there and letting us take part of it. And I hope we get to do it again, because it was awesome. It was so much fun.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to be regulars there. You never know, but it definitely sounds amazing. And being a regular at Comic-Con, I would totally recommend people go and check it out. It's an awesome event, and especially if we're going to be there from now on, it's going to be
even more awesome.
Yeah, but doubly awesome.
Talking about games that get you into worlds, I was hoping to touch on something really quickly before we get into talking about specific games in more detail, and that is Bot Factory, which is a game that is on Kickstarter right now. It's launched a couple of days before this podcast is released to the public, and it's going to be there for another 10 or 15 days or so. So Bot Factory is designed by Vital Lacerda, and as soon as I said that, Mike is running for the hills already. I can see him.
I was just looking for you to tear up when you said Vital Lacerda. I was waiting for
don't be
tear
scared.
of joy to go down your face, and like, oh, Vital. I was. If no one else could see this at home, when Def said Vital, he put his hand on his heart and looked to the stars, just with love and joy.
But if you've been following what Eagle Griffin Games has been doing, they've been trying to get lighter games into the market. obviously Vital being known for these heavy, complex games, they've been trying to change that up or mix it up a bit. They published Mercado de Lisboa last year, which is based on Lisboa,
Yep.
and it's a much lighter game. And Bot Factory is based on Kanban, his game for the automobile production line.
Actually, I've got a question there already. Is it more akin? Have you played the original Kanban, or is it more specific? Okay, so I'm going to assume that it's more aligned with Kanban EV. I know there'd be somewhat similar games, but
it's basically it has the main action selection mechanics that Kanban has, either the old one or Kanban EV.
Yep.
So Bot Factory is basically a game about building toy robots in a factory, and you have the factory manager, Sandra, that walks around the floors and blocks spots, and then all you do is you have one worker that jumps from one department to another. The game is very, very simple. One department, you take parts for the bots. The other department, you assemble them. Another one, you take a blueprint. And that's basically it. The game is very simple to teach. Doesn't take more than 10 minutes, maybe 15 to teach. And it's a 1 hour game. So it's not a complex game by any means. There is more in this game than Mercado de Lisboa. If you've played that, you know that Mercado is probably a 30-minute game.
Yeah.
This is more than that. But it is a fantastic worker placement game. I think if people give it a chance, it will open up a lot of new doors in that genre of games. And because of the theme, I would think that it's quite attractive to a wide audience as well.
Yeah, okay.
So we're planning on doing a live stream of Bot Factory at some point during the week, possibly Tuesday night. Keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. But I basically love the game. I tested it last year, and I've played the final version now on Tabletopia, and I absolutely love it. So I want it to do well and more people to discover it. So, have a look, Bot Factory.
Yeah,
do you
I
see
haven't
this
played this yet.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, do you see this def as like my first Kanban EV? Is it like, do you think it's for like very, very young children, or are we talking about it's just an easier game, like me liking midweight games a lot more? Do you think it's more suited to me, or is it more suited to like children? Do you think like what's the audience do you think they're trying to get for it?
I think a more widespread appeal for these games is what they're looking for. It's not necessarily a game for young children.
Yeah.
My girls would probably play this, I think.
Okay.
But my girls play Root, they play Architects of the West Kingdom, Aeon's End, and Gloomhaven. So it's not a big jump from that, really. But I think the audience that they're trying to reach is, that one level down in complexity from the heavy Euros. But this is not even mid to heavy, I would say. Like, if you've played games like Great Western Trail, Clans of Caledonia, Maracaibo, what's another, medium to heavy worker placement, even Voyages of Marco Polo 2, Bot Factory is much easier than all of these.
Yeah, okay.
So, it's on par with, say, something like maybe Everdell.
Okay, yeah, cool.
In terms of so anybody that can play Everdell can 100% play Bot Factory.
Awesome. I look forward to trying it.
I'm keen to give it a go.
Yeah, for sure. As soon as I saw the box art, it made me think of the little aliens from Toy Story that get picked up by the claw. But the box just looks inviting. It looks really interesting. Like, I know what love you have for Vital, and I've only played one, or have I played 2 games yet? Maybe 2 games of his. But those big heavy Euros, as much as I sort of enjoy them, I tend to stick with slightly easier games a lot of the time. So I'm really looking forward to trying this game myself and seeing what I think about it.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy it, Mike. But that's Bot Factory. Keep an eye out. We'll probably stream at some point this week.
Very cool.
And that's great. Great news. selling Anachrony. Sorry, I still can't get over that, Jules. But we'll keep the awesome experience at Comic-Con and move on to talk about some games in deep. Who would like to go first? I think, Jules, you mentioned the game that you want to talk about earlier, so I'll pass it on to you first.
So the game I'm going to officially sizzle is called Bites. So this is published by Board Game Tables. They're the company that do Kabuto Sumo and On Tour and a whole bunch of other titles. So they're quite well known, but this game I think has slid under the radar for a lot of people. And I have to thank, I think it was Brendan in our community. He introduced it to me when I happened to be visiting a game store. I bumped into him there and just played a game because I had some time because it was so quick and easy to do. So the box is really charming. It looks like a picnic blanket, and essentially all you're doing in Bites is you've got these ant meeples, nice chunky wooden ant meeples, and you're moving them on pieces of food. I have to say the production in this game is absolutely gorgeous. All of the food tokens are dual layered cardboard tokens. So they've got that three-dimensionality to them. So they've got chunks of bites sort of taken out of all the pieces. It just looks really good on the table. If you haven't seen it before, you can head to the Facebook page and see some of the photos from Comic-Con there. But essentially, all you have to do for the setup as well is there's a little anthill which you slot together. You get all those food tokens, randomize them all up, just shuffle them on the table and make one giant line of those pieces. And you grab the 5 ants, put them at the far end of the line, furthest from the anthill, and all you have to do on your turn is grab any one of those ants, move it to the next color that matches it. So the yellow ant will go on the yellow cheese, the green goes on the capsicum, the red goes on the apples, so on and so forth. Move it to the next one in line, and you take a food item either side of the one you just landed on, and you'll score that at the end of the game. Now, the kicker in this is you don't know how much the food is worth until the end of the game. So what will happen is as everyone chooses different ants and moves them further and further up the line, it will get to a point where the ant's next move is it needs to go on the anthill because there's no matching colors between it and the anthill. And there's a whole deck of cards that comes in this game that can mix up the rules a little bit, but I'll explain the basics. The basic rule for populating the anthill is you fill it from the top level and you work your way down. So the first ant to reach the anthill will go on the very top, and on those levels is printed the victory points. So if the yellow ant, for example, was to get to the very top of the anthill, it has a 4 printed on there. So it means every yellow piece, the cheese, that you've collected will be worth 4 victory points at the end of the game. And then from there it goes 3, 2, 1, and then the bottom level is 0. So one of the ants, whatever color is matching that, will be worth 0 at the end of the game. And I think I'm there's a little bit of it's not an advanced rule, but I think once you've taught the game once, you can sort of add it in there. You actually set aside one of each of the different food types, and you put that at the anthill. So when you put an ant on the anthill, you can choose one of the 5 food types available. So it gives you a little way to grab some more food. But there's not just the 5 food types, there's also chocolate and champagne. And that's where some of the cards come in to mix up the game a little bit. So for example, one of the basic champagne cards was it's worth 1 victory point for each different food type you've managed to collect throughout the game. So if you manage to collect all 5, they're worth 5 points each. And the chocolate is worth no victory points, but you can spend them to do powers. Like one of them allows you to discard it once you've had your turn, and you can take a second piece of food. So those are just some of the basics. The game comes with extra bits like little logs and pieces of gold. There's even a little market stand that add these extra rules to the game to just mix it up a little bit, really. So I think I got to play with one group, the logs. It's like the first person to grab an ant and hop over a log has to take it, and it's worth -2 victory points at the end of the game. And then you can do things where you mix up the order of which the anthill's populated. So the first ant to get there has to go on the 0 point value, and you work your way to the top. So last is 4 points.
Okay.
And then there's the third anthill population card is called the introverted ants. So what it does is it spaces them all out. So you have to fill them in the order of 4, 2, 0, 3, then 1. So it just adds these, little twists on the game that just actually really actually do change your decision making on which ant to grab, which food to go for. They seem minor, but it really totally mixes up the dimensions of the game. And I bet I've taught the game. I've described obviously some extra elements and things in a little bit more detail, but this was a game I could teach in 60 seconds to people, and it took 10 to 15 minutes to play. I kid you not. I don't think Bytes left the one of the tables the entire time of Comic-Con that weekend.
It was played a lot.
It must have been played at least 30 to 40 times, maybe even more than that. It was so popular. It was so eye-catching. A couple of people played it, almost non-stop through the convention. They kept coming back again and again. It was just a massive hit. It was so good. And even after that weekend where I thought, I think I've taught and played this game enough, and I just got it to last me for the rest of the year, I've actually taught it a couple more times since that weekend to family, and they've had a great time with it. And I think this is honestly like a must get for people. It is so simple. But for me, as a person that really does lean towards the heavy games, I enjoy it so much. Some people said, oh, maybe there's a little bit of luck in it. I think it's pretty minimal, to be honest. It's more about people switching on to the fact that their choices have consequences for other players. So if you move, an ant and then take the red piece, it then means that it unlocks, the red ant moving further for someone else and maybe landing next to Champagne all of a sudden because you took away the next red location. There's all these little things that start to add up. And I think it can become quite a mean and cutthroat game when everyone's really knows what they're doing. And if they see someone sort of stacking up on one color, people might push that ant along to get it on the 0 spot first, or whatever the case may be. It's just brilliant. It looks really, really great on the table. The component quality is fantastic. It even has a zebra ant, which looks really cool. I've taught that to a few people. That only moves on the chocolate and champagne pieces. That's a pretty unique twist. But it's a delight to play. I really, really highly recommend getting this. Unfortunately, board game table titles are not the easiest to source in Australia. They don't have them in a lot of stores. I was able to get my copy from a store in Canberra. So it's not impossible, but I highly recommend taking a look at this. It is so, so good.
Very nice. It was a fun game. I got to play like half a game with you guys before I got stuck into other games with people, but I really liked how even if you're going for, cheese, it doesn't mean you're moving that ant all the time. You have to move the different ants. So even though you want cheese to score great,
yes,
moving that particular ant isn't exactly what you want to do or can do to achieve that. So it created this really good, fun choice. And I definitely would like to play a full game. I'd like to play it again, especially with those variants you're mentioning as well. I think they would be really cool.
Yeah, the variants are awesome. And yeah, that's the trick. You like, okay, I'm collecting yellow, so I want the yellow ant to be on the highest spot. But the problem is you move the yellow ant to the cheese, but you have to pick something either side of it. And if so what you end up doing is you're moving all the other ants to collect cheese, and the yellow one's being left behind. And if it's being left behind, it's not going to get to the first scoring spot. So it's just this great dynamic. It's really, really good.
What I love about these stories, Jules, is that I obviously enjoy my heavy and sort of complex games, and what I love about these cases is that you would think that the quick, the lighter, the easier games to play would be kind of have a certain set of ideas and kind of recycling the same ideas again and again.
Mhm.
But we actually see the exact
Yeah.
opposite. We
Yeah.
see people's creativity being used up in lighter games as well, and you have all of these new and fun and quick games to play that offer you a great experience and possibly not very similar to something else that is out there. And I think that's a testament to people's creativity, but also the huge range that sort of the board game space gives you to play with,
Yeah, absolutely. I was. It must have been quite a few months ago I played it for the first time, and literally the reason I ended up deciding to purchase it, like literally the week before Comic-Con, it arrived in time. I thought, I remember this being fun. I'll bring it along. The reason I decided to get it was because I'd never forgotten that couple of first games I played all those months ago. It just sort of stuck with me, like, man, that was really good, and it just kept sort of nagging in the back of my brain. I decided to finally get it. It's not a expensive game either. It was like $40 or $35. So it's just so good. No regrets here. I think I've literally already got to the point of $1 a play in value.
That's pretty awesome. How many people can play, Jules?
Can go up to 5 players.
5, okay.
But there's also an expansion you can get, which I haven't gotten, called Double Bites. So you get another whole set of food, so you can make the line even longer to play with more people. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's Bites.
That is Bites.
I played a silly little game yesterday that I wanted to mention. I had Comic-Con. Our friends Amy and Maggie from Think a Theme stopped by to say hello. And I was chatting to them. And I can't remember. Somebody came up asking me to teach them taco cat goat cheese pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how to play that. And Amy went, oh my God, I love that game. I'll teach you guys. And when she came back, I'm like, I've never played it. She goes, I geek out of that game so much. I have 4 copies.
Wow.
I met the designer once, and I, geeked out over them, and got him to sign a copy. And it made me think, why haven't I played? Like, I love my really silly little quick games. Jules will see every game that I go to. I've got this little square bag I take, and it's got like 15 small games in there that I take everywhere I go. They're full of all like games like Skull and Oriflamme and The Mind and High Society, a bunch of little games. I'm like, I need to order this game. Never played it. Don't know what it's about. And last night we had some friends over, and I mentioned this to them. He goes, I've got a copy in the car. He goes, he's got one called Taco Cat spelled backwards, which is essentially the same game. But have you guys played this game before, though? Do you know what it is? It's so silly.
I know not what it is, but I know about it.
Yeah.
I got hurt in this game physically. This game can be painful. It's one of those snap on steroids kind of games. So you all get a share of the cards. And basically, each one of you put a card down on the pile one at a time. And each of you have to say in order. One person flips over a card and says taco. Next person flips over a card and says cat. Next person says goat, so on and so forth. And when you flip over a card that has what you're saying on it, everyone needs to snap it. And the last person with the hand on top loses and has to take the pile of cards. It's one of those classic kind of little games where you have to get rid of all your cards.
Yep.
His one was particularly good because the reason it's called Taco Cat spelled backwards is some of the words are reversed. And when the word is reversed, you have to put your hand down with your palm up as a bit of a difference.
Okay.
And the first person to do it wrong loses. It's a really silly, quick little party game, but it made me laugh because a bunch of adults are really aggressively slamming the table. There were hurt fingers and thumbs and all sorts of things. We're just really aggressively doing it. Then there's a few other animals mixed into it as well. So if it's a panda, you have to rub your belly, then put your hand on there. But what I liked as well, they got flinching rules. If somebody flinches, they lose automatically. So some of the animals are colored or shaped to look like the other one and little things like that. I just wanted to mention it. It was such a fun little silly game. Like, it's one of those games just like Cockroach Poker. It's great for kids. even better with adults after a few drinks.
Sure.
Like, if you just want something loose to break the tension or start a game night, I reckon it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to my copy coming in now. Even now, I probably want to go and buy the backwards one now and have that in the collection. But I just wanted to mention that little silly game because I thought it was worth mentioning. It was just fun and stupid, and I really enjoyed it. But on the slightly heavier side of things, I did just want to mention, I won't talk about it too long because I probably won't do it a lot of justice. But Ben from our community, he's in our Discord community, came to my local weekly game night that I host down in Melbourne. And he ran 2 sessions of Blood on the Clocktower. Now, Blood on the Clocktower won in 2020 for us, I think. Best party game, was it? I believe we had.
Yeah.
Was it best party game? But it's a game that's been around for 3 years, but only actually got released recently, officially. It was a long time coming on Kickstarter. But Blood on the Clocktower is akin to your werewolf sort of style game where a bunch of people sit around in a circle, you get a roll, someone's getting killed every night, and the town has to vote on who to kill, trying to find, the evil demon or the imp in this version. But it's worth mentioning because this game has some really cool differences. It adds, I believe, a lot of confusion to the game in a good way. Like the storyteller, the person running the game, I think has a lot more control than a game like Werewolf, where they can try to mess with the game a lot as well. And I think that just adds this whole new layer because they know exactly what's going on. They can lie to people at certain times. So the main thing in the game that I really loved is that people can get poisoned. So I actually, in the first game we played, was the poisoner. So I could poison people. And man, it was fun because I quickly found out who the empath was, who could read other people's roles. And there was someone else who had a really vital role, and they mistakenly told me early who they were. So I kept jumping between these 2 people every round and poisoning them, which means every second round, every second turn they had, they were getting incorrect information fed to them because they were unknowingly poisoned by me. And so the storyteller would give them false information. And so because they kept trying to verify the information by checking in other ways, I was just messing with them the whole time. And it was amazing watching the look of confusion on these poor girls' faces as they kept getting confused. Or in the game, there can be a drunk. So the drunk gets given a role by the storyteller, but they're actually not even that role. Everything they learn and everything they know in the game is fake because they don't know they're a drunk character. But that input from the storyteller, I think, was really, really important and made the game way more fun. But the next thing that I think is one of the things I preferred over Werewolf is that when you die, you're not done. When you get killed in this game by process of elimination, like if the demon kills you in the middle of the night or if the townspeople decide to kill you, you get one more vote for the rest of the game, which adds a nice thick layer of tension because you want this vote to count. You got killed and you want vengeance and you're an angry spirit and you want this vote to count. So it's this fun thing of being included in the game still. You can't do as much, but you can still talk. You can still try to figure it out. You're a vengeful spirit coming from the other side, trying to still have input and have your death, be revenged. And having that one more vote helps keep you involved. Because I've played Werewolf where someone like poor Connor gets killed in the first 2 rounds and has to stick around for the rest of the game and can't do anything. So I think they really improved on that base game of Werewolf. The production from the finished game looks absolutely amazing. You've got tokens you pull out of a bag with a nice velvet back to them now, and the big book that clips together that the storyteller holds. It just looks amazing. I'm holding this big book looking thing with all the tokens in there, which they can move around and sort of manipulate what's going on. And there's even something in the middle of everyone showing who's dead, what everyone's name is, which is really important. We had a bunch of new people come to my game night that night, and having something in the middle of the table showing who's alive, who's dead, what's their name. It helped everyone get involved really quickly and become a bit more familiar and not just point and say them. You could read people's names out. It was great. We played this game back in lockdown. over Discord, and it was really
Yes.
good. I've played it in person a few times now, and I've played this game at 5 people, and it was amazing. I've played this game now at 12 or 13 people, and it was amazing. Blood on the Clocktower, I think, has really brought back that game. Look, I love Werewolf. It's a great game, but those things that people might not like about it, and maybe the lack of interaction the storyteller can do, because in Werewolf, you might want to play more than you want to host the game, because you don't get to control that much, whereas I think now Ben was really happy just to host the game all night. And I think that's because he still has control, where you can still mess with people and have that creative input into the game, making it interesting for the storyteller as well, because they're still playing.
Yeah, that's right. Like the storyteller also sort of has the role of balancing the game. So if they can see it's shifting one way heavily to one side winning, they can actually do stuff to pull that back and make it more balanced again, so people really have a good experience. It wasn't just a lopsided, very quick game. And that feels fun to mess with people. And I haven't played it beyond our experience on Discord that time ago, but I know that the game doesn't have just one game mode. It has a bunch of scenarios with different roles in them, and I would love to start to explore and experience all of that as well.
Absolutely. I wouldn't mind running it once in a while now, and just getting maybe some regular people coming and doing it once in a while. Because it's a great experience, and it's always the same thing with those kind of games. The first half of the first round is always a bit awkward, because no one knows what to ask. No one wants to point the finger at someone because you feel bad. But I think even knowing that the person that gets killed isn't out of the game completely helps you be a bit more okay with it. Because in Werewolf, you feel guilty. If I kick you out at the start of the game, and if I'm the one that accuses you and you get killed, you feel a bit bad, because that person's now just sitting down twiddling their thumbs for the next hour or so. Whereas in Blood on the Clocktower, all right, I'm going to kill this person, but they're not out of the game completely. They can still talk. They can still, try to convince people of certain things. They can still ask questions. You just have one vote left. So it's about choosing the right time. And that makes a fun moment too. Watch people go, no, that's it. I'm throwing in my vote. It's a big moment. It's memorable. It's fun. It's there's a lot riding on that one vote. You want it to count. So yeah, Blood on the Clocktower for me will be my sizzle, because I had a lot of fun playing it. And thanks again to Ben from our community for coming to my local game group and running that for us.
Mike, do you think that this system, because Blood on the Clocktower has been undoubtedly a great success since it was, not officially released, but since it was out in the community and people could play it online and whatever else. Do you think there's a chance that this will, spawn other implementations of this type of game, like with different themes and maybe different, demographics, and a whole sort of not new, but a whole, side of games that we haven't seen as active in this hobby at all, have we?
No, not heaps. I think there's a certain kind of person that wants to play those games. Oh, obviously. But even like a change in theme would be really cool, because the theme isn't that far from Werewolf. You still have, people with mystic powers and a demon and things like that. Like, why can't it be in space? Why can't it be, theme from a TV show or something? Like, I can't see why it couldn't be. So I'd love to see if this encourages people to create more from it, because these games are lots of fun. I love talking, as you can tell. So a game where I can sit around and try to be shifty and have to, explain why I'm not evil and things like that, I reckon that's lots of fun. I think that's a really cool thing in games. And so to see what they can possibly spawn from that, and to see if they create something different, or if somebody else gets inspired and creates something different, I think there's a lot of room for this sort of thing to grow in the hobby and to develop more. Because like even at Gen Con, I'm going to be going to a night that's all about social deduction games. And I can't wait for that. It's going to be cool to play one after another and mix it up a lot. And I think that's something I don't see enough happen a lot of game nights. Like, because you generally need a higher player count. You might need someone to run the game. That's why One Night Werewolf is really fun, because it's over pretty quickly and the app sort of drives it all. You're not relying on anyone to run it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what people create based on this and what else comes out. It'll be pretty interesting. Have you played much of them, Def? I'm not sure if that's really your kind of game. Is it
It
something that you
really
play much
isn't,
of?
but it's like any games that have a lot of most of their experience based on people's sort of behaviors and characters rather than actual mechanics. I tend to shy away from because I'm quite shy. I don't like
That's all
really
right.
to do a lot of this stuff. But I've discovered that if you have the right group of people, then you
Yeah.
can play pretty much anything. So I'd love to get my try into these games at some point for sure.
I could actually see you being really good at it. Like I've got it in my head that you might be shy, I might need you a minute to warm up to it, but you're a smart fella, and I think you'd be really good at convincing people of whatever you want. I think it'd be really interesting to see you play that.
Awesome. Well, that was Blood on the Clocktower. Now, my sizzling game is one that's long overdue and might take us down a little bit of a darker path, but
I'm okay with that.
It has to be done. So, this game was released in 2019, but because I made the mistake of it was a Kickstarter game, and I made a mistake of opting for single wave shipping, which I've never done since. I only got it, at the end of 2021, and because it's a campaign game, I didn't really get to start it until a couple of months ago, and this is Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, it's published by Awaken Realms, so you know what you're in for. It's deeply thematic. It's immersive as you as much as you can imagine. But there's a couple of things. So this is it's a cooperative adventure, right? Experience. So it's not a dungeon crawler. It's more like an exploration game. A lot of people have compared it to the Seventh Continent.
Oh, right.
I recently played the Seventh Continent, and I can categorically say that these games are not similar.
All right.
I see why people say that, because essentially what happens is you have a map that is covered by, fog of war, and basically your characters are on a card which just sits alone in the middle of the table, and then as you start exploring on the left, right, north, or south of the card, then more cards come into play, and that generates the map of the world that you explore.
Yeah,
and that's exactly the same mechanic with Seventh Continent, but that's I think where their similarities stop.
Oh, okay.
So Tainted Grail is a very narrative-driven, story-driven adventure. It has a very dark twist, blending of the Celtic mythology and the Arthurian legends. So if you can combine these things and put in Awaken Realms, usual creativity, you get something extremely immersive. I mean, from the first chapter, this is unbelievably immersive. I actually had to look it up, and I saw that the guy that created the story is one of the, if not the best ever Polish fantasy author.
Oh, really?
Krzysztof Piskorski. I didn't know this. I thought the guy was just a creative person in the game industry. I didn't realize he was an actual writer, and that makes perfect sense, because I'm telling you, if there is a game out there that has a better story or narrative than this, I want people to speak up on our Facebook group, on our Discord, and let us know. But I've did a bit of research before tonight, and I think most people agree that this is the best story-driven adventure the hobby has seen.
Okay.
I mean, the story is just unbelievably immersive. You have these explorers, and you start with a simple task or a simple quest, and the map you start exploring, but at the same time, you have this weirdness, like this darkness, if you want to call it. This reminded me of the nothing from the Never-Ending Story
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that
cool.
consumes the world, you know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. You
And
got my attention.
to be able to explore the rest of the map, you need help from these ancient guardians called the menhirs, which is like the three giant statues that are represented with these huge minis in the game that you have to kindle, you have to somehow activate, and those are the ones that give you basically access to the world. If you let them die, if you let them switch off, as a figure of speech, then they get removed from the map, and all the surrounding cards or the entire map in their surrounding area gets removed, is disappeared, and you have to find a way to open it up again.
Oh, wow.
So
Mm.
the story progression is pretty spectacular, but a lot of people have, mentioned that this whole, having to go back and find resources to keep the characters alive, or find resources or magic to rekindle the menhirs, it creates a bit of grind.
Sure.
The truth is that for me, it's the same deal as Etherfields, which had its, everybody knows, has had its issues in the mechanics. I haven't seen this in this game, but even this sort of minor issue, it has just zero bearing, because the experience it gives you through the storytelling it has, it's just something I'd never seen before. The story is so good, I'm just keen to forget about the mechanics of the game and start reading the story.
Yeah, cool.
So what you do is you use the mechanics to your benefit to progress the story through this. But having said that, the game has a couple of things that I really, really enjoyed, and that is the mechanics that it has around the encounters. So every time you move around in the map, depending on what kind of area that is, you can do some basic actions. So you can explore, you can hunt for food if there are animals there, and a couple of other things. But there's also 4 different types of encounters that represent different things. One is wild animals, the other one could be something magic related, the other could be unfriendly locals or settlements, stuff like that. But when you draw an encounter card, it could be leading to a combat or a diplomacy situation, and these are handled in a different way. So the way these work, though, is similar. The whole mechanic is similar. Every character, which from the start they're highly customizable and they're highly asymmetric, because they have these attributes like empathy or spirituality or brutality, and they use these to create a deck of cards for combat and a deck of cards for diplomacy. So you have, I think, 25 cards to start with.
Okay.
And you have this huge pool of 60 additional cards that you can buy cards from with experience. As you gain experience, you buy cards and you place them in your deck to make it more powerful. But the way it works is, in the encounter cards, there are these symbols on the edge that are called keys. And the cards that the players hold also have various keys at various spots on the left-hand side of their cards. And so you have to try and play cards that match these keys and give you certain results. So they could give you a hit on the enemy if it's a combat, or they could force him to retreat, or if it's a diplomacy encounter, you have this scale of 6 or 7 slots on the left-hand side, and you have this cube that moves up and down depending on who is convincing whom.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And your goal is obviously to convince the other side. So if you reach the top, then you win the encounter. If it reaches the bottom, you lose it. And I just thought this was a very refreshing way of doing it. It feels a bit weird at start,
Sure.
but it creates this really clever puzzle that you have to manipulate, because you only draw 3 cards every time.
Oh, okay.
But there's ways to get more cards during the encounter, because some of the keys give you bonus, or draw an additional card.
Right. Okay.
But you may have to sacrifice some magic to get it, or things like that. And
Yep.
I found that quite clever, and it's kept me engaged in terms of the mechanics of the game. But, oh my god, the storyline is spectacular. It has, first of all, it is so branching that I am on chapter 4 at the moment, no, chapter 5 at the moment, and looking back, because you have this deck of, setup cards that say, hey, you're playing chapter X, this is the setup that you have to go through.
Okay.
And I'm on chapter 5, and I've already skipped, I think, 6 cards from chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because depending on what you choose to do in every chapter, it tells you at the end, oh, yep, you are now completed this chapter. You can continue with save the game, or continue with the setup of chapter 2B. So 2A and 2C, you will not see in this campaign at all.
So is it campaign? You can never go through it again once you've finished?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no change in components in the game. There's no shuffling of, a certain order of cards or nothing like that. The only thing you have is a very clever small save sheet that basically you note down your character's attributes, their health, their experience, their these attributes that they get, items they find, secrets they uncover, stuff like that. And the second thing is, obviously, you have to note down the parts of the map that you have active at the moment, you've explored, and where the menhir guardians are. And other than that, you can, stop it, set it up all over again, and start from the scratch and make different options. But we are talking completely different branches in the storyline, which is, it blows my mind how much content there is just in the core box. And the core box is half the content of one of the expansions that I got.
Wow.
So I have no idea how long they have been working on this game to get it to this stage. So, this is a game that you probably would play at a small player count, I would suspect.
Okay.
Because at higher player count, I find that some of these games, maybe the experience gets diluted a bit, unless everybody's like really, deep into it.
Yeah.
And you're doing a solo dev?
I've been playing solo with 2 characters.
Yeah.
And it's been absolutely fantastic so far. As I said, some of the grind to get to resources and make sure the menhirs are always lit and all of that sort of stuff. Even the game has an official storyline or story mode, I think it's called, where it tells you a small tweak, very, very small, but makes a huge difference. And I started playing with that straight away, so I wouldn't have to worry about, the grind too much. But it's been quite interesting. The story is quite heavy. It's quite dark.
Okay.
There is a phenomenal app that has been made that has the entire scenario text inside it. So
it's all been recorded, like audio voice.
Recorded. So obviously, when you go to a new card and you explore it, it tells you, go read, passage 134 in the secrets book. You open that, it tells you, you're on the, on the bottom of this huge stone hedge, and you can see someone there. Do you want to approach? What do you want to do? And then depending on your option, the option that you take, it tells you, okay, go read 355.
That's cool.
But on the app, you just type the number, and then it walks you through it.
That's cool.
Good.
And they've recorded this with this lady that is quite fitting the atmosphere of the game.
Okay.
And I just think they've done such a phenomenal job with this. Obviously, I haven't finished the campaign, not even the core campaign yet. But if you look around, I think you'll find that most of the people that have played it had an absolute blast with it. And yeah, I think this is a one of a kind thing. And to be honest, I actually think that I believe Awaken Realms is doing a reprint soon.
Okay.
Oh, that's
and a new
dangerous.
expansion. So I do think that there is going to be a massive hype at some point. I don't know if it's this year or the next year. But it was one of these games where you kind of go, come on, how long were they working on it? How long did they have to work on it? Enough. Let's see the game. And then you kind of get it and you start playing it and you go, wow, there is so much in here to unpack. And the creativity and the storyline is just phenomenal.
With such like an amazing storyline and playing solo, does it feel like a good book that you can't put down? Like, well, let me just play for 10 more minutes. I want to see what happens next. Like, does it have that same sort of feeling that you don't want to put down a good book?
This is exactly what happens to me, Mike, because you know probably better than me, because you probably play a lot more thematic games than I do, that you kind of have to be in the mood for these games. You kind of have to want to step into their world a bit. Well, a couple of the last times that I played this, I was a bit on the fence, and I was like, I'd rather play a Euro game, or I'd rather play something that is more mechanic and dry. I don't really want to pay so much attention to a story. I don't have to, read text and stuff. And as soon as you start playing, within 10 minutes of starting playing, you kind of like forget what time it is, what day it is.
Yeah.
One of these days, I wanted to go to bed because I had early morning next day, and like it just didn't matter. Like I had to finish and see where the story ended. So very, very addictive. I wish there was a way to share this with more people. Like, this is not a game you kind of jump in and out of. I think you'd have to experience it from start. So if you have someone that you can share a campaign with, I think there's 14 quests or whatever they call them in the first box, the core box. So probably a good 30-40 hours of playtime there. And if you have somebody that likes this type of stuff, I can't imagine a better way of spending an evening. So there you go. I knew that it was good. I knew that the storyline was good, but it's been absolutely mind-blowing.
I've got one more question for you, Def.
Shoot.
How are the minis?
Well, you know the answer to that, Jules. The minis are Awaken Realms standard. They're becoming, I think, industry standard now. I think if I ask you, you'd probably can only come up with maybe one other studio that makes better minis than these guys.
Yeah.
Maybe two.
Yep.
But even then, I think you'd have a hard time justifying that.
Does the darkness of the theme come through well in the miniatures?
It does. It's no Kingdom Death Monster, right? There's no minis that give you, a knot in the stomach, but they're pretty quiet. They're pretty dark.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's one of these games. And we were talking the other day where I said, I really need you to paint some of these minis for me, because it's one of these games that you want to experience it at its full.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you want me to paint the minis, I'm happy to do that.
There you go. So that is Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah here. I want to talk a little bit about one of our sponsors who has sponsored the podcast from the very beginning, and that is Advent Games. Adventgames.com.au is an Australian board game store. This is the store where I get all of my games from. So you know that I'm not just advertising it just because. This is very personal to me. And Dean, who runs it, is very knowledgeable about games. He is a huge board gamer himself, and he often gives advice and things like that, and just awesome all-round customer service. So all around New South Wales, you can get flat rate shipping from adventgames.com.au for $10. If you're somewhere else in Australia, you can get flat rate shipping for $15, not that much more. And if you are super local, you can even see Dean at Chatswood on Tuesday nights to pick up games from him, from his very paws. So that is adventgames.com.au. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast.
Those were some wildly different Isling games.
Just a
but I
little
think
bit.
just a little bit. Just a tiny drop. We can get on to our bracket battle. Our bracket battle is sponsored by Game Toppers, and we have some interesting news, I think. I would call it that. We're resolving Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is dare I call it an original board game barbecue favorite? Darling,
Yeah, I think so.
For sure.
versus Too Many Bones. And given I was on the podcast last week and under the threat of Mitch, I had to, I was honest.
Duress.
Under duress. No, I was honest. I said that I actually think Too Many Bones will win this because it's been more widely available for people
It has
compared to last year. But what do you guys think? How did you think this went?
Oh, man. Even though Too Many Bones has become more widely available, Quacks was just when it came out, was dominating the scene. Absolutely dominating. And it's one of those things that's good for all ages, whereas Too Many Bones has a steeper learning curve. We're comparing apples and oranges here, but seriously, it's
like we usually do.
Yeah, like we usually do. But, there's just something about Quacks. It just has a bit of magic to it. And I think a lot of people still love it. I've only played half a game of Too Many Bones, so I'm not the best to comment on it. But that half a game was enough for me to back the Unbreakable standalone expansion. So that speaks for itself. But yeah.
Mike?
Look, Quacks is a darling of a game for everyone. It's going to hold a special place in everyone's heart. And yeah, you can go into a shop and buy Quacks, but you can't go in and buy Too Many Bones, which is definitely going to be one of the detriments of Too Many Bones. I hope for a win for Too Many Bones. I love that game. I think it's pretty amazing and very unique, and I love the world they've created. But I felt like Quacks would probably win it based on just accessibility and the age range. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I did vote for Too Many Bones this year. I had a great time playing it last year and got every expansion under the sun. Arrived with my burn cycle game. However, Quacks still seems to have quite a special place in people's gaming hearts because it has gone through.
Oh, wow.
Too Many Bones is out.
Quacks of
Quedlinburg.
Can you hear that? I think I hear Mitch crying from here.
Oh no!
That's Mitch crying in Sydney, and I can hear it in Melbourne.
We don't want that.
Oh.
So that's it. Quacks goes through.
Too many Bones pulled the white cherry bomb.
Yeah, the white cherry bomb. That's it. Had no potions to save itself.
No,
it pulled a 3 when it was on a 6. That's the problem.
That's it.
Yeah.
But to be honest, based on the love and more sort of personal attention both of these games have been getting from especially our community, anyone going through would be a fair win. So
yeah,
congratulations to Quacks. It has gone through, and Too Many Bones, I am sure, will be here next time.
Absolutely.
Too Many Bones wasn't enough bones.
That's it.
Now, the next one we have to launch, I know a few things about, but I will go to you guys first because I will start sounding like a broken record, and that is because the new bracket battle is Gaia Project versus Raiders of the North Sea. Have you both played both of these games?
I've played
Jules,
both.
I know you have.
Yep.
Mike?
I've just played Raiders.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want to start? Let us know what you think.
Look, Raiders took some warming up for me, to be honest. I played it once online, and that was one of the first games I played online that I'm like, nah, don't like it. But then I played all the other West Kingdom games. I'm like, I think you both know I don't play online very much because I'm not a big fan of playing online. I think I found a lot of times I didn't like games because it was online. So I actually only a few weeks ago at my local game night, someone said, I've got Raiders in the car. I'm like, grab it, let me try that game, let's give it another go. And we played, and I'll even admit, towards the start, I was still not a big fan. I'm like, seems really simple, but once you start getting into the game more and more, the hard decisions became more prevalent to me. Like, you know, if I get this really good worker and use it, that means I'm leaving this good worker for somebody else to use. And how do I do this? And how do I do that? And by the end of the game, I'm looking for a copy now. Like, I really enjoyed it. It's a game that I think is an excellent introduction to worker placement. I can see why people say it is a really good introduction to the hobby. I think the theme worked really well for it. I think it is a very good game. Gaia, I think, once again, similar to our Quacks and Too Many Bones comparison, like, I still don't know if I've got the brain power for Gaia. Haven't tried it yet. It seems like a beast. I'm interested to try one day. I've got Unplayed Terra Mystica for the first step here that I've had for 2 years probably. I haven't actually cracked out yet. I want to try it one day.
That needs to be fixed.
Yeah, we'll see about that. It's something I definitely want to try one day, but I've heard great things about Gaia. I think the people that love Gaia love it a lot, and will definitely have no question in this battle. I'm interested to see what you gentlemen think, actually.
Well, I'm going to pass it to Jules because everybody knows that I think Gaia Project is the best design we've ever seen the light of day. So it's a clear discussion for me. But what did you think, Jules? Because you've now played Gaia Project at least once with me, and you've played Raiders as well.
Yes. I was going to say the real reason you're handing the discussion to me is because when we've played, who has the 100% win rate? We better let the expert talk. No, I'm kidding. Oh. He's a master teacher. That's why I did well. No, Gaia Project honestly wasn't as heavy as I had built up in my mind. That was probably the first thing that surprised me. And look, there are definitely factions you can play that are more complex and are a very different puzzle. And I think that's probably where a lot of the heaviness sits in it. And the fact that not just because there's so much asymmetry in the factions, but the board is modular and is different every time you set it up. Just, it means it's one of the games that is hard to master. Like, you'll learn it, but it's hard to master because of that variable setup, which I really appreciate in games and I highly value in games. It just exponentially increases that replayability, which I consider really important. But Gaia Project, for me at least, is a very clever puzzle game to me. It's trying to eke out, you know, just enough resources to build just enough of the buildings that you need to build to just be able to form federations. And, you know, it's one of those things where if you have leftover resources, you really haven't, you know, done that puzzle to its max efficiency, if that makes sense. So I can absolutely see why people love it. It really just turns your brain through a blender to try and maximize that output. But also it has interactivity. People can rush and beat you to the planets that you were really banking on to be able to build a mine on to form that federation or whatever it may be. I think it's such a clever game. It's probably, after I played it once with Def, it's definitely a game I go, okay, this is not a game I'll purchase, but I will never say no, I think, to anyone wanting to play it. Yeah. And I think it is absolutely a brilliant design. I still think it needs a new lick of paint, but, you know, that's a lot of Euro games out there for you.
Yeah, it is. And we're already rooting for our friend Ian O'Toole to get his hands on it. I know he's a huge fan of the game.
We've got to start that petition.
Yeah, that's right. But I might snap it the other way around and talk about Raiders of the North Sea for a change. Obviously, if you want to listen to me blabbering and gushing about Gaia Project, I've done this in a few episodes on our website. You can look them up. But Raiders was a bit of a an interesting surprise to me, because when we got it, we had already gone down the rabbit hole of heavy euros and complex games and all of that, and getting a game that is, I think we can argue it's an entry level worker placement game, right? It's, Architects of the West Kingdom level. It's not more complex than that game. I probably argue it's even maybe less complex than Architects. And so
Okay.
I was expecting it to be good, but we've kind of progressed away from that good, not good that we replay it, but it actually wasn't that. It's fun. It's engaging enough because of the way the worker placement runs in the game, where you place a worker and you remove one, and so that immediately affects the options of the other player, but also you're going for the same settlements and raiding them. So I thought it was definitely worth being in our collection. An interesting twist to this is, though, that a lot of people told me you really need to buy the 2 expansions because they completely elevate the game. We bought the 2 expansions.
I've actually never played the expansions. I've only done base game a lot on the app.
Same, yeah.
We played it once with 2 expansions and then sold them.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Oh, wow.
Because here's the thing. I'm not saying the expansions are not good, but if I want a more complex, more involved Eurogame, I'll play Paladins of the West Kingdom.
Yeah,
I'll play something else. This is why you break this game out on the table, because you want a game that sets up quick, plays in an hour, has a clear, more relaxed kind of experience, rather than having to think about all these 10 additional things there on the side and this new track over here. And so that was an interesting experience, but that's just to say that the core game is quite good. It's a clever worker placement game. I don't think you can go wrong with getting new people to play this game. It's very simple to teach. So I'm sure it will get some votes, but obviously my vote will go to Gaia Project. I think it's the best game that exists out there. So our community, you guys, our listeners, please go to our social media channels on our Facebook or our Discord, on our Instagram, and vote for either Gaia Project or Raiders of the North Sea, and we'll see how they go next week. I don't think we have any fanatics that will come rushing in from any, cults that like we had with some games last year. So I don't think we run that danger in this battle. So it should be a fair battle, you'd think.
All right, a nice clean fight.
He said after summoning Ian O'Toole to vote for Gaia Project.
And Def, before we move on to the next segment, if somebody wanted to play these games, is there anything coming up where they might be able to play them?
You could say that in August the 20th, so just over a couple of months away, we've got the next Brisbane Game Day. And so the tickets will be on Eventbrite, so you can go and have a look at them. Last time, I think we had sold out event. There's quite a few people there. Martin Wallace was there testing out one of his games, or a couple of his games actually. And it's always a good event. The venue is very good. You can get food through the day when you need to take a break. But we've got volunteers helping us out, and I'm always there, and Adrian's always there. We're teaching some games, as do the volunteers. So some of these games will definitely be there. I've never brought Gaia Project to a Brisbane Game Day. Maybe it's time to do that.
I think it's time.
There you go.
It's and even just having a quick look, mate, it's already 70% sold out. Like, the tickets are going fast.
Whoa.
If people are interested, we only just started advertising it officially. This is why, guys, it's a good idea to get onto our Eventbrite and subscribe. You'll get notified straight away. But the tickets are flying out the door. These days are great game days. It's a great team up there that runs them. So get your tickets quick. And if they're sold out, join the wait list and see if anyone cancels. But yeah, definitely get them to them real quick because they're selling real quickly.
Before we move on to our next segment, just a huge thank you to our community, our supporters, our Patreons that support us on Patreon, but also all of our community members that have created this fantastic community on Discord and Facebook. I've said this before, I've been involved with online communities for at least 20 years, and I've never seen a friendlier and more welcoming community than the one we have there. And this is, all because of the people that participate there. So thank you. If you want to support our podcast and you like what we're doing, you can either sign up to our Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue and sign up there. We produce exclusive podcast episodes. Some of these are about games. Some of these are not really about games.
They're all good.
Yeah, we do some personal episodes as well. They're all great fun. If you have the financial capacity and want to support us, you can do that. If you don't, there's other ways you can support us by leaving us a star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps a lot for the podcast to be discovered by more people, or even the star system in Spotify. Also, if you would like to get involved in the discussions, join our Facebook community or follow us on our social media. And of course, most of the time we are all around talking in our Discord community, and most of the time arranging some kind of online game that Mike doesn't want to play, and we sometimes force him to, but that's okay. So our next segment is the oaths. Okay, I see one person nodding with confidence and the other one trying to hide. So let's start with the one that is confident. How did you go, Jules?
Okay. I have had...
I will retract that
That
statement.
doesn't feel
As soon as you
confident.
said okay,
I've had
I was like, uh-oh.
one success and one fail. So my success was I swore to do a multiplayer game of Age of Steam. So I got that done. So thanks to Joe and Sam in our community for playing that with me. It was a little bit of a rough teach because it had been a while, and the solo mode just is quite different to a multiplayer game.
Yes.
But in the end, it worked out. The person that we thought was in the lead did end up winning. So, we played a 3-player game. I think this game for me is like the more the better, the more crazy it is. I think I'd prefer maybe 4 or 5 players for Age of Steam.
I just had a 4-player game last night, and I'm still recovering from it. It was like... because I've played the same map, the Rust build.
Yes, that's what we did.
At 5, it's 6 players, and at 6 players, it was mayhem. And I thought 4 players, it's going to be a walk in the park. There's space for everyone. And at the end, it was like a knife fight in a phone booth.
Yeah, I mean, even at 3 players, that's a bit what it was like. So I just needed more bodies to hit,
All I know is we need more Age of Steam in our lives. It's a phenomenal game.
Yeah, it's really good. I feel like I've only just scratched the surface, so I'm looking forward to playing that more and trying the different maps. Rust Belt is a pretty forgiving map. It's very open. There's not many mountains in your way and rivers. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to amping up that difficulty. But the other one I haven't done yet is a 2-player game, which is Ortus Regni, which I talked about last time I'm on.
Okay.
A head-to-head duel card game with 0 explanation text, full artwork on the cards. There's no text whatsoever. So I'm still looking to get that tabled, but I'm very keen to do it. But we always double down. So what I want to do is there's a game, an expansion I got in not too long ago that I have played, but not my copy. And I really want to play it again. I don't know why I haven't made it happen sooner, but that is the Root Marauders expansion.
Oh, yes.
So I'm yet to play my copy. I want to try the Lord of the Hundreds, which is the other faction that I haven't tried. I've played the Keepers in Iron, but not the Lord of the Hundreds, which I feel is absolutely more my play style. So I, Jules Watson, swear by the next time I'm on the podcast, I'll have played Ortus Regni and my copy of the Root Marauders expansion.
Very good. Come on, Mike.
So, my oath was to play Viscounts of the West Kingdom because I have
Nice.
played the other West Kingdom games, and that's the last one I've not played yet, and it still is the last one I have not played yet. Hey, I'm pretty good with my oaths. It's actually a rare thing I don't do my oaths. It wasn't that long since I was last on. I was doing Comic-Con all the other weekend. I've had a lot going on recently, so unfortunately, I've started learning it. But I'm not quite there. It looks really interesting, and it's from what I hear, a lot of people's favorite version of those games. So I'm very much looking forward to jumping into it and reporting back to you all what my thoughts were on it. But it hasn't happened yet. It'll happen very, very soon. But like Jules said, we always double down. I have become a victim of a few of the latest sales going on, and I've made a few purchases. One of the purchases is a game that I'm really looking forward to trying. Like I said before, I like my weird, odd, sort of light games. I have a soft spot for them. And someone, I can't remember who it was in our community a while ago, shared a game that I'd not heard of before that got my attention called Picture Perfect. It's a game with a bunch of standees, and basically you're trying to take a photo. You're trying to take a photo of like a big family or a bunch of friends. But, you know, the problem taking a photo is Aunt Linda doesn't want to stand next to Aunt Rita, or George
I've
is, you know,
heard of this.
George wants to be in the front of the photo, but so does, so does Andy, and I don't know. Everyone has their sort of own wants about what they want in the photo. Do they want the pot plant to be in front of them so that it's covering their face, or do they want to make sure they're, hidden in the back of the photo? Like, each character has a secret envelope attached to them which dictates what they want in the photo. And I think that always changes in the game as well. So I think you grab a few characters, I believe, and it has a full little diorama. So there's a little table that sits in the middle of the photo, and you got like a background. And at the end of the game, once everyone places their characters, you actually get your phone and take a photo of this setting. And then you look at the photo to sort of determine who scored points, if everyone scored the conditions that they were given. And it just looks really interesting and just a bit unique and something that I haven't sort of heard of before, and a bit gimmicky, but I'm a sucker for a good gimmick. And for me, that just seems like an interesting gimmick. I don't know. It seems like a kind of game that I get a few people into that'll hopefully create a few laughs. So I'm really eager to try that one. So I've got a few games from the sales, but that's one for me that's just something a bit silly and weird that is just really calls to me. So I'm Michael Farrugia. By the time I'm on the next podcast, we'll have played Viscounts of the West Kingdom as well as Picture Perfect, and we'll tell you all about it.
Very good.
How about you, Def?
Well, my oath from 6 days ago, may I remind you, was to play the new On Mars expansion that had just arrived, the Alien Invasion. Now, I kind of haven't fulfilled this oath because there's 4 missions in this expansion, 4 different modules, and you can play any of them. So I've played the 4th mission, which is the solo one, and that was obviously the easiest one to do. I still want to track down whoever designed this because I think it is absolutely impossible, but I will keep trying.
Does his name start with a V?
I don't think so, but we'll see how that goes. But I've played mission 4, and missions 2 and 3 are cooperative. So I've played the second mission with Timmy, and we really enjoyed it. It mixes things up a bit. You no longer have to compete with each other about with points and stuff. There's no points in the game. You have to basically build up the colony and reach some goals, while at the same time the aliens that have invaded the colony in the first mission have injected some colonists with a virus. And as you move your colonists, your workers in the On Mars action slots, if there's other workers there, they all get infected and they lie down and you can't use them anymore. So you have to rearrange them on the quarters, because if they're in the same quarter, they'll give the bug to
that's really clever.
Their colleagues. It's really good. And you build hospitals, and the hospitals produce medicine and vaccines. And you kind of have to balance this additional thing on top of everything else going on Mars. But it doesn't make the game more complex. It makes it actually more focused.
Okay.
You know, it's one of these things that tells you, well, you need to have workers to be able to take action, so you can't just afford to let them all get sick. So still have to play mission 3, which is also cooperative. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to do that. But the first mission, which is the actual alien invasion, it's the largest module, is a 1 versus many. One player controls.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
One player is the alien commander controlling the invasion of the red planet, and all the others are just the human players trying to progress the colony and build the colony in between this alien invasion. But it needs minimum 3 players, right?
Right.
And given my girls are still not greatly keen to play on Mars, I think I have to rope in Adrian. I know he and MJ are very, very keen to play this. So at some point, I'm hoping we can complete this. So I've played 2 of the 4 missions.
I
2
think
of the
that's
4
pretty
still
good.
left to play. But like you guys, I didn't want to leave it there. I'm going to double down, and I am going to swear an oath to play a game I don't have yet, but I was told by VR that is coming this week. And that is my Kickstarter from the Railways of Australia and Railways of Sweden, which are the expansions for the Railways of the World Griffin game. So this is like a lightweight pick-up and delivery version of Age of Steam, right? It's simplified, quicker, more fun, more interactive. And I've never played it, as funny as that sounds. I've never played Railways of the World. So that's my new oath, to finish the On Mars Alien Invasion modules and play Railways of the World.
Awesome.
And with that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did recording it. Again, a huge thanks to our community, our sponsors, and our Patreons. A lot of what we do is solely based on the fact that we know that there are people there liking it and listening to it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Mike, for joining me tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure as always, guys.
And see you next time. Until then, play your games more.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
It was like a knife fight in a phone booth.